Hello, everybody, and welcome to WWOW Talk. My name is Roger Hanson, and this is the first WWOW Talk actually that I've done on Wonderful World of Weirdness. I've done other live streams, but this is the first time I've done WWOW Talk live stream, and that is good because I'm privileged enough to have a person with me that was introduced to me by Otto Excelsior and bobdub from Minds, and they recommended that I contact this person and kind of go over some of the content that he has, and they said that I would be interested. So what I did is I actually did it, and I went and I checked everything out, and I was pretty amazed by the stuff that he is doing himself, because it's going over the upcoming series that me and Austin Todd are doing, which concerns everything about aliens, which will be out in May. But until then, I wanted to do a live stream with Brian. Now, how do you say your last name? Ruhi or Ru?
Well, we just say Ru, although the German pronunciation is Rua, but we just say Ru in English.
Okay, so Brian Rua. Now, Brian Rua is a very, very interesting man. He he has his own website and everything, and before I start getting into a rant about it, I'm going to welcome him to the stream and thank him for showing up for the live stream, because this is a privilege to me. I really did enjoy your videos, Brian, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to you, and so you can kind of give your own background of where you've been and what you've been doing with the topic we're going to be discussing.
Yes, well, thanks for the intro and the invite there, Roger. Yeah, I guess with my interest in the UFO, ET, or all things aliens, I seriously got involved in 2006 when I discovered YouTube. YouTube was invented in 2005, and I discovered it around 2006. And I always had an interest in UFO, so I just typed in UFO or UFO documentaries, and I was shocked, stunned, and amazed by all the stuff going on there. I've had an interest in it all my life. Like as a little kid, I took the subject seriously. I always believed it was a real phenomenon. I guess I've never had any doubt whether it was a real phenomenon or not. And I published my first book in 1999 called Freeing the Buddha, and had a chapter in it called Buddhism and UFO. So I definitely had an interest, at that time. But it wasn't until 2006 that I more systematically studied it. So I probably studied it for over 3,000 hours, probably more than that since that time. And I joined the UFO community in 2007. Linda Moulton Howe was giving a talk here in Vancouver. She's quite a famous, well, she calls herself a journalist rather than ufologist, but she's very good, a good source. And at her meeting, I met with the organizers of UFO British Columbia, UFO BC, their website, ufobc.ca, and I've just been in touch with them this week. I joined as an associate of theirs for 5 years. So that was my real involvement with the actual being involved with the UFO group. Their job was to post sightings in British Columbia and Yukon on their website and to investigate sightings. And then I just got more involved, and in 2009 I started a meetup group. Today it's called Preparing for ET Contact. Back then it was Vancouver UFO Meetup Group. And this was a whole community. Like we had about 20 people at the average meeting. We would meet like every couple of weeks or once a month or every week with a regular sort of scene. So this was the main UFO scene in Vancouver. And it's through the personal connections I made, like personal tutoring from various people I met, that I learned more and more about, what to study, what videos to look for, what books to read, that kind of thing. So it became a real education for me, and that just sort of grew and deepened my interest. And then we had a meeting with our meetup on the Ides of March 15th, 2020, and I first met Jeff Selver, and I was very much impressed with him. He's a local experience here in Vancouver. Has had a relationship with the gray aliens. He had like 26 contact experiences that he could remember, and I got to know him. He later gave me the draft of his book. This is the second edition of his book. It's called The Rising: The Alien Plan to Build Enlightened City on Earth. So asked me to read the draft, give him some ideas or suggestions about it. So I've gotten to know him, and I've sat in on about 30 hours of his videos. So he gave me a much better impression of the gray aliens, because I think they've been slandered a lot, you could say, in the media or even in the UFO community. The grays are the most commonly known ETs, and I always had a dubious or uncertain, you know, attitude towards the grays. But he's had positive experiences, and then he led me to Susie Hansen, and she's really become my biggest influence the last 4 years. She's only published one book. She's got another on the way. This is called The Dual Soul Connection: The Alien Plan, The Alien Agenda for Human Advancement. And it's kind of been my Bible in a way. So I've been in touch with her, and I often refer to her videos. She's got a YouTube channel, Susie Hansen. So in terms of a school of thought, you could say that defines my kind of school of thought within the UFO community. Because if you were to talk to 100 different ufologists, you might get 73 different viewpoints.
Yeah.
Phenomenon. Like, it's very disparate community. Yeah, but that's a bit about my background. Do you want to fire away with any comments or questions?
Yeah, on the conversation that or with what you just finished off on, I do want to talk to you later on in the interview about Susie Hansen and Jeff Silver. That is something that I did notice that was influential with you. I also noticed that you are big on the topic of the Federation and stuff. Now that too, I believe is important.
Look at my cup. My cup is the Federation of Planets cup.
Right, exactly.
That's probably the best evidence I've got to show here.
Now, before we get into that, though, there's some other things that you've picked up on that I think is really important that I'd like to have a conversation with you about before we get to those topics, because, like, I don't know if you realize it or not, but there's a lot of things that you discuss that's very unique when it comes to ufology. You know what I mean? And I'd like to go over some of them things, because not too many people talk about it.
I think I've got some more unique ideas, or perhaps some high level questions that I'm asking of the UFO community.
Right. Now, I did notice that your biggest passion, I could say, is with the gray aliens. And the one thing that I'd like to get into a conversation with is something that you mentioned about the gray aliens and President Eisenhower, and kind of give us a little bit of a background on that, and let everybody know a little bit about what you found out concerning that.
Yeah, we start with Eisenhower. Well, yeah, I think Eisenhower met at Holloman Air Force Base probably around February of 1954 or February, March. So he'd only been president for a year, right? Since January of 53, he was sworn in. So I do think he met with aliens there. There's different sources, but he probably met with more human-looking type aliens. They could be called the white Nordics or tall whites. I think face to face, he probably met with those. And I think what happened was the relationship didn't work out so well. There's one fellow, I forget his name, I've written down, who wrote about his time at Murdoch. I think Murdoch was the name of the base. And he said their whole view of reality was just shattered. And he just felt pity for all these scientists and military people and the president who just, their world came to a sudden end, like, So they didn't know what to do. So they basically just decided we can't do anything. And because what the Nordics were asking them is, you've got to get rid of these nuclear weapons. This was perhaps their biggest problem. And they felt, well, we can't do that. That might lead us vulnerable to the aliens, of course, being the military. It's their job to protect you. It's their job to be suspicious. So the long and short of it, they didn't want to surrender up their nuclear weapons to get rid of them. So it seems that they couldn't come to an agreement. So what the DTs decided, well, if you're not going to do it this way, then we're going to have to do it another way. And Jeff Selvery's got an essay about this, because his own impression with the Greys, they gave him some impressions about Eisenhower, what was happening. There's an essay on his website about this at jeffselver.com. That's Selver, and JEFF Selver.com has an Eisenhower essay. And what he's saying is because the Eisenhower administration, and I would say that means the Rothschild power structure. I think the globalists, the Rothschilds, have been in charge of the world since long before then, and I regard Eisenhower as something of a puppet, like a puppet of the Rothschilds. But anyways, the human power structure basically said no to this deal they're offering. Like they said, you have to be more spiritual. We can help you with spiritual teachings. We can assist. But because the humans said no, they just said, well, if you're not going to do it this way, then we're going to have to, if you won't deal with us, then you have to deal with the Greys. So they basically gave the Eisenhower administration, the human power structure, the warning, if you don't deal with us now, you're going to have to deal with the Greys, like good cop, bad cop. So then the Greys had a whole other approach, and this became known in the 1970s as the abduction phenomenon. So it seems the Greys are going about it their way to, behind the scenes, change human society, which is a whole other conversation. So I believe that the Eisenhower meeting did actually happen. I mean, some people deny it, of course, some people don't think so. But I think there's enough corroboration by a few different sources that it actually did happen. And it kind of makes sense that something like that would happen, some kind of negotiation. I think with the human governments, there's been some relationship for some time. I think that's part of the reason why there's secret societies.
Now, this is just your take on it, okay? I mean,
yeah.
With the alien contact, what is your take on the difference between the Greys and the Nordics' approach to first contact?
Well, I think they've always, or at least in long-term memory, I think they work together, because people have seen them on the craft working together. The most common ETs people see are actually human beings. Some looking fully human or humanoid. I think they're actually the most common seen on craft. Second would be the Greys, and people have seen the Greys on the craft, have seen them working with the white Nordics or the tall whites, or whatever adjective people want to use to describe these human-like, but they're very good looking. They're usually a bit taller. They might have blonde hair, blue eyes, and often they have like a blue jumpsuit or tight-fitting blue suit. But they're definitely a cut above normal human intelligence and looks. They're very beautiful. But so many witnesses, like I like to quote the Conscious Contact Research Institute. We're having their director as a guest in a few weeks, Ray Hernandez. So they've interviewed over 4,000 experiencers with very thorough surveys, like 600 to 700 questions. And it's quite common that people would say, they've seen the Greys working with the whites. They see the Greys working with mantids. They see all these groups working together. So I think there's a relationship. Perhaps it's a hierarchical relationship. At the top would be the mantids. They're probably, even Richard Dolan in this book, Alien Agendas, he says the mantids may be the highest intelligence that humanity has yet encountered. And he says that's why you don't see the boss on the factory floor with all the guys working on the factory floor. That's why people see the Greys much more often. They're doing most of the actual contact work, but the mantids seem to be the architects. So to answer your question, I'd say the Greys were very much involved with the President Eisenhower meeting, but logically they would say, look, let's get someone more human looking to interface with these human beings so we don't freak them out so much. It'd be more disturbing to see a Grey. There's maybe a tall Grey, like 6 or 7 or 5 feet, or short gray, 3.5. But certainly it makes more sense if you're going to have a first meeting with the President of the United States. Let's get some of our guys that look more human. So I think that's a logical decision why. But it's all the same group. It's all the same kind of federation, or they're all working together, and they decide, okay, I think that's we'll send the Nordics logical first to meet decision with President Eisenhower, and then later, later we see more of the grays.
Okay, so the one thing that really sticks out to me about what you've discussed before too is freaking Earth's refusal, or not just Earth's refusal to the alien offers, but you also mentioned hybrid humans and grays. So is there a way that you can kind of give a little bit of a story on that so that we can kind of get an idea of what that's all about?
Yeah, like one question Richard Dolan have, I often quote him because he's probably the best, most well-known ufologist in America. He's very good. He's a great man in the sense he's done such great research. And what he's saying with regard to humans, he said when he first heard about experiences describing seeing aliens that looked fully human, he rejected the idea. He said, well, that doesn't make sense, that evolution on some planet, halfway across the galaxy would evolve in such a way to look just like us. He thought that's suspicious. That doesn't make sense. But there's so much of these reports. So I think there's different ways of looking at that. One theory Richard Dolan has is that way in the distant past, maybe 40,000 years ago or 30,000 years ago, they took fully anatomically modern humans from Earth, brought them into their society. So now they have a large population of human beings as part of their society, working with the aliens. So they're alien in the sense they're alien to our culture. They're part of alien culture. And people like Susie Hansen and others who've actually been on the craft or even in underwater bases, like in the South Pacific, there's an underwater base. They see humans right up on the stage in these kind of lecture halls of 250 people, standing there with a gray. The gray is telepathically communicating in this lecture hall. And there's a human being there who introduces the grays and gives a speech. It's all telepathic. But it's a human, and she's even noticed one fellow who got gray over the years, someone she's seen over a 15-year period, the same man, and they wear blue overalls, and they're part of their structure. They're not like humans they took from Earth, like in their lifetime. Humans were born or raised within that society. So I think that's one explanation for humans that people see on craft, is that they're real human beings. They may have been taken from Earth, or another theory is certainly that we as humans could have been brought from other planets, and there's humans on other planets. And how did they get here? I think one quote that Linda Moulton Howe often states, so she was taught by a DIA, which is a Defense Intelligence Agency analyst back in the 1990s, that all questions of human origin have been answered, and that book is now closed. And then humans were developed from primates. They tweaked or changed the DNA of evolving primates, and that's how the gray aliens, DTs, made human beings. So this would have been a long, long time ago. So that kind of explains there's plenty of humans out there on other planets and working with the aliens. Did I over answer the question?
No, actually, you did a wonderful job of it. And I'd like to welcome Austin. He finally showed up. He said he was probably going to be late. We now, Austin Todd, this is Brian. I've been talking him up for the last couple days now. So,
hi, Austin. Austin Todd, good to meet you for the first time.
My audio went out for just a second there.
Okay, yeah, we have a technical issue sometimes, so if it happens, remember we do have chat in here, Austin, so go ahead and type it out if you can't speak, okay?
Okay, my audio went out for just a second. Let me get out and back in real quick.
I can hear you fine.
It's
right
now. It's working fine now.
It's
good.
Working fine. You just keep on talking. Don't move. Stand still.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so
Nice to meet you, Brian.
Good to meet you, Austin.
we've gone through President Eisenhower and the gray aliens and alien contact. Basically, is what we've done, and I have asked Brian what he believes, what his take on the difference between the Greys and the Nordic approach to first contact was with with Earth. I don't know if he was able to watch the video that I posted up on Discord or not, but that's basically where we're at right now. And I just now asked Brian about Earth's the hybrid humans and Greys. Now, with that, you mentioned something else in your videos that I caught on to, and I'd like to hear a little bit more about it, Brian. It's the quantum dimensional consciousness.
Yes, that's a line I've learned from Jeff Silver. It's in his book and a lot of his talks. The idea of dimensions, I can even describe that in Buddhist cosmology. In my own books, I've got actually a visual description of dimensions. Like the Buddha describes above the human realm, there's like the heavenly realms, the angels, we call them devas. This is a blow up. My book, Short Walk in an Ancient Path, and on page 123. These, in a sense, are dimensions. These are the lower six heavens of the central sphere. And then above that's the Brahma sphere with vaster beings, and then the formless sphere. So the Buddha outlines these 31 planes of existence, which you could describe in a sense as dimensions. So quantum dimensional consciousness means that these beings on a higher dimension, they can actually be here simultaneously with us right now. It's just that we can't see them. It's like with angels or devas, they can see us, but we can't see them. So that's what's meant by the idea of dimensional consciousness, that their consciousness can interface with ours. And humans normally can't see the higher realms, but quantum dimensional consciousness, quantum means, I guess, getting close to like what's the fundamental ground of reality, like absolute zero. Yeah, what does quantum mean? The idea is that a human being can develop this consciousness, where your own consciousness as a human being in the physical body in this three-dimensional world can also relate with that higher reality. So this is part of what UFO disclosure will mean. It's not just, the President of the United States will tell us that aliens are real, but it means that these extraterrestrials, or these higher realm beings, they're already here and they're among us in a sense. They're interdimensionally here, but we can't see them. So that might disturb people. So I think that's part of the meaning of quantum dimensional consciousness. So and what Jeff Silver is referring to, you should get him on as a guest. I certainly recommend. But he's saying that the Greys, they have this quantum dimensional consciousness. They're in this higher state, and they can be 3D amongst us, see our 3D world, while their consciousness is also at a higher level.
Well, that's really a good explanation right there. I mean, now Austin, is there anything that you would like to ask concerning that?
I never even really thought about alien beings having multi-dimensional, like being able to interface with multi-dimensions. I've always thought they could travel between dimensions, but I didn't think they could be aware of multiple dimensions at once. So that's kind of new to me. That's very interesting, because that ties into like spiritual stuff too, you know.
Which brings me to a question too that he mentions as well, which was the spiritual orientation to life. So keep on going. I just wanted to add that in.
Oh. Sorry
about that.
Oh, okay. So I always I used to think when I was a little kid and I was into aliens, like watching like sci-fi movies and stuff, that they were always from other planets. They just came here from other planets, but it was all in a physical dimension. But the more I've gotten into reading about it and really diving deep into it, and talking to people like Brian and stuff, and you, Roger, realized it's not really as simple as they're just coming here from other planets. They're in dimensions that are parallel to yet intertwined with ours. Now Brian's opening my mind to they're also aware of multiple dimensions at the same time on top of that. So that's adding kind of a whole new thing to, and they can be in all these different dimensions at one time, not just traveling between them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of opening a new doorway for me too, for it's taken on a whole new layer just now.
That's good. Now, do you think, Brian, that you could kind of go over what you were referring to when you did say spiritual orientation of life? Like these hybrid humans and grays are supposed to be replacing human beings, and they're supposed to have a spiritual orientation to life. Now, kind of break that down a little bit and let us hear a little bit about it.
Yeah, I think that's getting to the fundamental reason about why the ETs are here. I think, from their perspective, at least, Susie Hansen has expressed, we're spiritually retrograde. She compares it to a river where the water's running smoothly down the river, but off on the shore of the river, there's these eddies where there's old car tires and cans of pop. Water's a bit stagnant. So that's where planet Earth is right now. We're kind of stuck in these eddies. At least we're spiritually retrograde. So I think what the ETs want is for humanity to develop spiritually, because we're having a big effect on the planet with our pollution, our nuclear weapons, and everything else. Duality to say the gray ETs, it's more just understanding the nature of reality. I'd say they have a full nature of understanding, much fuller understanding of nature of reality. And being a Buddhist, like I'm a Theravada Buddhist. I was a monk in Thailand back in 1996. And part of the whole Buddhist worldview, the Buddha said, becoming completely enlightened means you see things as they really are. So there's kind of a scientific mindset in Buddhism that if you're fully enlightened being, you're actually fully engaged with reality and you see reality, because most of us are in some state of delusion and confusion. So what's scientific and real, I think, to the gray aliens is that they're so evolved, they could be like a billion years ahead of us in their spiritual and mental and intellectual development. So what is natural to them at their level, to us, it's like spiritual advancement. The whole idea of spiritual is it's a mysterious thing to us. Like, what do we mean by spiritual? Like magic to us might be just like everyday science to the gray aliens. So I think they're a vaster, higher intellect, a vaster state of spiritual development. Also, an important quality of them is they have more of a hive mind, because they're telepathic. The hallmark of ETs is that they're telepathic. They can't keep nasty secrets from each other or plot a coup d'etat against the president and secretly try to take over the place, because they're all telepathic and very open. So they're more of a hive mind.
Yeah, I got
I don't know, is that enough of an answer?
Yeah, that's pretty good. So, before we go on, do you have any comments you want to make or questions you want to make?
I'm thinking.
Well, I mean, you don't have to. I'm just wanting to see.
I'm just thinking if there was anything.
Okay.
I was thinking if there was anything I wanted to say. So yeah, I mean, if they're totally telepathic and each one knows what the other's thinking, they can't do anything against each. They can't have wars or any real conflict or anything. You think their empathy and everything would be perfect because they know what the other one's thinking and feeling. So they're in that perfect state of existence then
Yeah, I
Now,
think it's
that we're seeking.
mm-hmm. What was you saying, Brian?
I think it's a good state that they share that kind of communal kind of society. But some people would criticize this. I have a debate I did with Ian Halling. He works with Linda Moulton Howe on Earth File show every Wednesday night. They have a show at 7, and he's the announcer on the show. And some people don't like the idea. They have sort of the idea of the American rugged individualist, like I am me, and this is what I want to do, and this is what my life is about. The individualist and celebrating the individual. So people complain that, well, these gray aliens, they're losing their individuality. You know, they're more of a communal group. They're not so special. So is there some kind of a compromise there? But I think it's worth it to have not only a harmonious society, but Richard Dolan, he speculates on his videos and also in this book, he speculates that the Greys must have an extremely stable society over thousands of years, or even over hundreds of thousands of years. They probably have some type of AI government. Whereas in our society, you know, Trump gets in, people get all upset. Then Biden gets in, people get, you know, humans are so volatile. Our governments are so unstable. Whereas these aliens, they go on for millions of years, extremely stable. So I think there's benefits to that communal thinking with the Greys compared to human beings with all their nasty secrets and their hidden jealousies and everything else.
Yeah. Now, before that you mentioned the fact that these were hybrid humans and Greys that you were discussing, okay? And in your videos, you make it a point to say aliens have been or humans were created from over like a dozen different alien species. And,
yeah, I mentioned that in previous talks. Yeah.
Is there a way you can kind of give us a little bit of information on that too? Because that sounded pretty interesting to me. I mean, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think I got that from I forget which channel that was. You know, Linda Moulton Howe was told by one defense intelligence agency that humans were derived from already evolving primate species, and they may have used 12 different types of alien genes to tweak and create the new human. I've got that from a few sources that there's a dozen different species of ETs in the creation of humans. But I mean, all of these are shades of gray. On my video, Brian Rue's ET hypothesis and sources, I give my sources, but I can't say I know or I'm sure. I'm saying I just have a working hypothesis, you know, until I get better information for a better hypothesis. But I think it was, several varieties of ETs, because it also had to suit planet Earth, our gravity, our atmosphere, our microbes and everything. They have to survive on this planet. And it does seem in a way human beings don't quite fit in. Like if you're dropped in the middle of a forest, it might be hard to survive compared to like a cat or a dog or else. So it seems like we perhaps there's also a difference between human beings and hybrids. You could say in a way we're all hybrids if we were made, but then there probably is a hybridization program going on with what's called abduction or the contactee phenomenon. Like I know Ralph Epper here in Vancouver in 1942, he was in Germany and he saw 3 gray aliens right in his bedroom when he was 7 years old. He's still alive. He lives down the street from me. I've done many videos with him. But so what's probably going on with these grays and this whole abduction contact phenomenon is they're taking sperms. So they're probably using that to create hybrids of humans. And in the long run, they probably want to hybridize Homo sapiens sapiens to make us like 2.0, something better with this quantum dimensional conscious, more of a spiritual orientation to life, more of a communal, and a change in our government, you know, change in our society. That's probably where it's all going. Like this is a big question. Like where is this all leading?
Mm-hmm. Now, when I heard that and everything, the one thing that really stuck out to me, and I want your honest take on this when it comes to this subject, but the thing that stuck out to me when it came to contactee genetic research was the secret space program. Okay, and that's a big topic these days among ufologists. And I believe they also had some mentions of it in the old supposed KGB files that were supposed to have been found too when it came to alien species and about the draconians. And for me, I don't know if you are aware of any of that stuff information, but if you are, could you kind of give me your take on those subjects, kind of off of? I know it kind of goes off of what you're talking about with your subjects, but what do you feel about those topics?
Yeah, I definitely think there is a secret space program. I remember I met Richard Dolan in person. He stayed over at my apartment in 2014. It was actually June 15th, like 10 years ago this year. And this is just after he had published a little booklet on the secret space program based upon lectures he has given. So ever since then, I basically accepted that hypothesis. I think probably since the 1950s, like Dr. Stephen Greer states that in October of 1954, they cracked anti-gravity. They figured that out because he had a particular source from I call it the secret government from within, who gave him that information. So I think the Americans have developed their own man-made flying saucers. They're called like alien reproduction vehicles, ARVs, probably since the 1950s, but certainly since the 1990s. Like the triangular UFOs many people have seen are probably man-made. There's considerable evidence for that. And Linda Moulton Howe on Earth Files channel, her sources have said that we, meaning our own secret space program, whether it's American or global, has gone to 22 solar systems already. That was as of about 20 years ago, that source. So I actually believe this to be true. It makes sense that if they have anti-gravity, they've had this intention to keep it secret. And I think since day one of NASA in 1958, the original fundamental purpose of NASA is a distraction, a diversion, to make the world think that is the space program, you see, and they're competing with the Russians over there. You see, get it's like a magic trick. You get everyone's attention focused. Okay, NASA, Mercury, Gemini, we're going to try to go to the moon. Meanwhile, out of Area 51, they're going anti-gravity. I think some evidence for this is, the International Space Station we have up there. It was built supposedly with all these space shuttle launches, but I think the mass of it is only accounted for by about 10 or 20% of the space shuttle launches, that they probably just brought it up from Area 51 or wherever they are. So I think the Americans and basically our global power structure, the Rothschilds, has had anti-gravity craft, that is the secret space program. Not to be confused with Gaia TV. They have these people that say, oh, I've been in the secret. They have a half a dozen guys telling all these stories. The reason why they're allowed to say this is because it's not true. But like Gary McKinnon, for instance, he was severely, severely chased after by the U.S. government. This was in 2001 and 2002. He kind of hacked in because security was very weak with computers at that time. He was a British guy. He was this hacker looking for UFO information, and he discovered like non-terrestrial officers, lists of non-terrestrial officers. He saw a picture of like a starship, a very large ship named after one of the 12 members of Majestic 12. And then, the authorities caught him, arrested him, and it was a big deal. It went through from British Prime Minister Cameron and President George W. Bush. They're going back and forth to extradite him. But they decided not to extradite him to the United States and send him to Guantanamo Bay because he had Asperger's. And they thought, well, he can't take all the stress. So he cannot travel to the States. So this shows you someone who found out information about the real secret space program. It's a big deal, and they really go after this guy. But this guy, Tony Rodriguez, he can get there on Gaia TV. I also charges you $100 an hour if you want to get him on your show. And they go on and on and on about being on Mars with Nazis on Mars and the Nazis in the asteroid belt and series. They'll go on and on and on. You pay your money to $15 a month it's a Gaia TV. So I think there's a real secret space program, but I had Stephen Bassett on as a guest, and he said, well, you know, when there's a knowledge vacuum like that, people tend to fill up the vacuum.
Yeah.
There's money to be made.
So when you talk about that, you also have mentioned gigantic city-sized alien motherships and that are triangular shaped ships. That kind of reminds me of the Phoenix incident, where it occurred in, like, back when I was younger. I moved from Florida to Arizona, and I really hate the fact that I moved away from there, because like 5 years later was when all that happened. You know what I mean? I would have been able to see that if I was actually still living in Phoenix during that time period. Now, when you mention that, that's what it reminded me of. But then also you go on to say, talk about technical and social advancements and then secret societies, you know? So that was like a whole culmination of good information right there, in my opinion. So I was wondering if maybe you can kind of delve into that a little bit and let everybody know your take on all that.
Yeah, well, I have in my meetup group, I met a Mason. He lives somewhere in the United States. I won't give his name, but he said, Brian, the Masons have known about ETs for at least 3 centuries. He's going back to the original, I guess, Adam Weishaupt Masons, 1776 in Germany or Austria when they got started. He said that the Masonic secrets, they've had a relationship with the ETs, and the ETs, I guess, have needed this. So he said he knew a particular Mason who could talk to me about this and actually do a public video. I said, yeah, let's book it. But I never got him to book it. So this is someone I know. He claims to be an ex-Mason. So I thought, oh yeah, sure. A lot of Masons claim to be ex-Masons, but I think once you're a Mason, you're a Mason. So I think that's a true source. And I think going back maybe even further, the secret vaults of the Catholic Church, you could probably go back 1,000 years. Maybe they know about extraterrestrials, because interesting anecdote, around 2010, I was a background actor for the TV show V with the reptilians. And I was playing a cardinal in the Catholic, right in the Vatican, in this scene we were doing. And they hired a priest to show us how to put on our robes as cardinals. And I asked him about what's the Catholic view on extraterrestrials, and he was very clear on it. He knew how to answer the question. He said, well, if aliens came to Earth, we would ask them whether they, will they accept Jesus Christ as their personal savior, or perhaps they have another form of salvation. So what this indicates is the Catholic Church, they're already prepared. If there's a mass landing on the White House lawn tomorrow or in the Vatican, they've got it all prepared what to say. So the Catholics are way ahead of the Protestants in this sense. They know how to handle the situation. And also because of confession, which the Protestants don't have, because of confession, they probably find out about people encountering gray aliens in their bedroom and abduction. They probably hear these, and these stories get centralized to the Vatican. So it's a large global intelligence network with like 1.1 billion Catholics. And we know they have these secret vaults. It's something like 53 miles long of shelves of books and information. So the Catholic Church is definitely believed to be in the know about extraterrestrials. So in terms of like the American government, people think, okay, American government found out about this in July of 1947, right? That's when it began. Or was it 1941? But the Catholic Church might go back before the existence of America. Yeah. So, and the Masons as well. So, and I guess just to support them, I think from an ET perspective, they needed human beings who are in the know to affect their plans, to affect the development of mankind, like the direction we're going. It's probably, in a sense, a good thing that the ETs needed secret societies especially if you think of medieval Europe when the Catholic Church had such a tight control over it. They probably needed some boots on the ground. So I think I'm not opposed to the existence of these societies for that purpose. So this is just a theory.
It's a pretty decent one. Now, Austin has been sitting over in the background. This is probably the most quiet I've ever heard him be. Like he's never
Yeah.
this quiet. So
Yeah, I don't want to be a hog here.
Oh no, it's fine.
no, I mean it's definitely just him. Like I've never seen him this quiet before ever. So, like,
Was it something I said?
No, no, no. I'm just taking it all in.
so what's your take on it? Do you have any questions that you want to ask?
When it comes to like the secret space program, to begin with, I've always thought NASA was a joke anyway, and so I was like, what? They went to the moon, and then they seemed to have kind of just went backwards from there. So it always seemed like NASA was just like this circus sideshow, and it makes sense, when he describes it being a diversion, that why it would be as such. And with regards to the Vatican and stuff, I've always thought, they may have records going clear back to maybe Atlantis or Lemuria. If you believe those cultures existed, they may have managed to preserve some records that go clear back to there, which ties into some research that me and Roger and another guy that does a series with us, Mr. Robot. We've been doing some research on the Agarthians, or the Agarian peoples that live in the Hollow Earth. And they were originally Atlanteans and Lemurians, but they fled underground in the aftermath of an ancient nuclear war. But the Vatican may have some of the records from them, and maybe even, hell, there may even be a vault underneath the Vatican or something that leads into the Hollow Earth, for all we know. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of interesting how what he was talking about, the Vatican having those records and stuff going back maybe thousands of years. It kind of does tie into what me and Roger and Mr. Robot are currently working on very, very nicely.
Mm-hmm. Now, bringing that up, that's actually a good thing. What's your take on the Agarthian theories, Mark or Brian?
Well, I think the Earth is cavernous. I don't think it's hollow like a balloon, completely hollow. But I think there's caverns, like maybe Antarctica's got a cavern, and there's underground bases. But I don't know that much about the Agarthians. I guess I don't really have too much of an opinion. Don't know much about it.
Okay. I figured I'd run that by you to see what you were thinking. Or
do you mean like Shambhala? It's the same thing as Shambhala.
Shambhala, especially.
Yeah, actually, yeah. I started off my Buddhist life with Shambhala International, Tibetan Buddhism. Yeah, well, I think there's definitely an underground alien base in the Himalayas. That's probably closest. And Pat Price, who died in 1975, he was one of the great remote viewers for the CIA. He was likely murdered. I believe he was murdered, but he said there was an underground base in the Himalayas and Mount Haines, Alaska, and in Western Australia. And then later he was murdered, or he died. So yeah, I definitely believe that and it's an alien base, not an American or man-made base, but an alien base in the Himalayas. So maybe that's your Agartha.
Yeah.
Since he was murdered, he was probably onto something. That's how you'd usually know they're onto something.
Yeah, he was concerned about the Mount Hayes, Alaska. He thought, oh, maybe I said something I shouldn't have. He said that because to the Americans, maybe that's very sensitive. But what happened? He died in a hotel room in Las Vegas hours before, the day before. Someone deliberately bumped into him and kicked him in the calf, like jabbed him in the calf. So he was probably injected with something in his calf, which caused a heart attack the next day or hours later. So it seemed to have been deliberate. So, and also when he died, before his wife was informed, they cremated the body.
Oh my
So this means
goodness.
it wasn't the Soviet Union that sent a spy to kill him. No, the Americans themselves. This is just my summation. Because they chose to cremate the body before even informing the wife what you want to do with your husband's body, it had to be an inside job.
Yeah.
So that's my think about
Oh,
that
absolutely, yeah.
place. Yeah, it's a shame. A brilliant,
And
remote viewer like that we lost.
And it's interesting that you brought that up too, because you did mention the Soviet Union, and another thing that I noticed that's being lost in a lot of the conspiracy slash ufologists stories these days is the dead scientists. I mean, you remember hearing about like lists and lists of scientists that had either been or they were killed mysteriously. You never hear about that anymore.
Yeah, I haven't heard about that in a while, but they got to keep their mouths shut.
Yeah, but like during the Cold War, especially, I mean, people were being killed off left and right, and there's deaths that had occurred that you could clearly say it had to do with espionage and stuff like that. But then some strange deaths too, and people that just vanished. Scientists.
I remember years ago. Now this isn't necessarily the absolute best source for anything, but you guys remember a show called Ghost Adventures, right? I'm sure
No, I forget.
I'm sure you do, Roger.
Yeah.
I'm so
At
old.
least.
I can't remember. I'm 64.
Okay. It was some paranormal investigators that went around, and they went to this one place in Arizona called Stardust Ranch, I think it was, and there was this guy. His wife kept getting kidnapped by Greys, and supposedly there was this scientist who managed to get a tissue sample of the Greys, or these aliens that kept trying to kidnap his wife. I don't know if they were Greys like you were describing earlier, Brian, but they were some variation of it, and he found that their cells were neither entirely plant nor entirely animal, but they were a fusion of some unrecognized plant and animal cell, like half plant, half animal, but neither the plant nor animal cell was native to anything we know of on Earth. Now, this scientist, he was going to go public with his findings, but then
Live streaming
he
has
was one of those
stopped.
guys.
That was weird.
He was one of those guys. Oh, did you hear that too, Roger?
Yeah, I did. I mean,
He was one of those guys. He was one of those guys that would work late in his lab late at night, and then he fell and hit his head supposedly and died. It was what they were saying on the show. So that ties in with what you and Roger were just talking about, like scientists and stuff.
yeah.
I'll have to see if I can dig that old episode up and maybe link it or something in the description or the comments section of this.
Well, I know that when it comes to the Greys, I've heard that there are actually talls and then there are the shorts. So I mean, what do you think about that, Brian? Do you think that there's a difference between the Greys, like there's the tall Greys and then there's the short ones?
Well, yeah, I think there's definitely tall and short, because so many witnesses said that. But just to pick up one thing Austin said, one theory is that the Greys are plant-based species, that they came from plants. First heard this, I thought, what? They're like intelligent plants. So who knows? That they originally could have originated that way. Like maybe, if they came from Zeta Reticuli, we know it's a star system we see from the southern hemisphere about 39 light years away, but it's 1 billion years older than our system. So they could be 1 billion years ahead of us. But yeah, your question of tall, and yeah, Susie Hansen has stated that there could be, maybe sometimes there's no difference in the intelligence between the tall and the small. She thinks there's a misconception that people think the little guys are just robots or artificial and the tall ones are real sentient beings. But she says in her experience, the little guys, they're sentient. They all have a soul in a sense. They're beings, and there's no indication that they're like lower in intelligence, just lackey workers compared to the higher ones. But there is a hierarchy within. I'd say there's generally a hierarchy. There what's called the ancient grays. They're really old, like folded gray skin, and then the tall and the short. So the talls, I guess, seem to have a bit more seniority in terms of their society. Like Jeff Silver, he describes one particular female elder. He describes the gray. She's like a grandmother figure. Is about somewhere around 4 foot tall or 4.5 feet tall. So taller than the smaller ones, but he calls her the elder, like a grandmother type figure. So they definitely seem to have a hierarchical society. But I would say, all societies are hierarchical.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of different opinions on that, and like a lot of the ones that I've seen that were involved with the talls, they weren't really portrayed in that positive of a manner. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
do you believe that maybe there's a type of gray that is peaceful, and then there's a type of gray that could be aggressive?
Yes, even to quote Susie Hansen, she said the Greys told her there is an interloper species of gray. So that right there shows something outside of their society that could be problematic. And it's possible
Live streaming is on.
It's possible that the reptilians, like I think probably most species of reptilians are pretty good, but there's some dark species of reptilians that they can even either manufacture grays, like programmable life forms, or have an alliance with some type of dark species of grays. So I'd say that's possible. It's probably true. There are some negative grays, but I think the vast majority of them are good. But our media deliberately is turned against the grays. And I think our media, our planet, our human society is governed by the reptilians. The reptilians work through the globalists. Mm-hmm. So they control the media, and the media is anti-gray. And even within the UFO community, there's all this anti-gray spin.
Yeah.
So, and I think the reptilians control the media. So that's getting to the bigger geopolitical reality of who's actually running the world.
Now you're getting into the spicy stuff. We've covered the secret society and this disclosure. Now, there is one thing though that I do want to talk about before we get into that, and that is technical and social advancements. Now, do you believe that our technical and social advancements are directly given to us from aliens, from alien technology, or do you think that maybe we reverse engineer a lot of it, or maybe both?
You asking me or Austin?
You.
Okay.
This is your interview. Austin's just here he's eye candy for the ladies.
Oh, okay, sure. Okay. Well, yeah, I think since the year, quoting one talk that I like to give my sources, one talk that Susie Hansen gave to Karen Swain in Australia around 2016. She specifically mentioned the year 1850 as kind of a year when the Greys kind of came back. It's not like they arrived for the first time, but they started to make a difference. And back in 1850, we know basically we just had horses and buggies at that time before the American Civil War. Then all these technical advances came, and she describes 3 waves of souls coming to Earth, which is perhaps the most important teaching she got from the Greys. And they were like innovators. And you think of people like Nikola Tesla was born like 1856 or 1858, around there. And then you have Thomas Edison, all these incredible inventions coming out in the late 1800s. So I think the Greys, and what she says and others, is that when they're brought onto craft into these lecture halls, they're given all kinds of information put into their subconscious mind. It's suppressed from the consciousness. So there could be literally millions or even hundreds of millions of people have been on the craft, but they don't remember. But these are inventors or scientists or specialists who are getting all these creative ideas, and they're building and inventing things. So even before you even address down technology that we back engineered, just in terms of consciousness, like Nikola Tesla, he would say he would visualize, or he would receive visions. Like they would come to him. He was seeing an electric motor completely made in front of him. He could take it apart, put it back together, all in his mind. He could see the whole thing, turn it around upside down before he invented anything. So where did he get this from, right? So I think the Greys, this is their part of their long-term program. I think they look at 1,000 years at a time in terms of human development. So I think the Greys are very much a part of our technological and societal social changes since 1850.
That's pretty good. Yeah, Austin, you're going to definitely have to say something, because I mean, I'm getting nervous here. Like you.
Don't let him get away with it, Austin. Stop him, Austin. Don't let him get away with this. He's going to take over the world. The Greys are going to take over the world, Austin. Stop him.
He's been way too quiet. I mean,
I was just listening. I was just taking in everything he has to say.
he gets
he's a wellspring of information for sure.
I think he's flustered. He does that quite a bit though, because like, who was it the last time that we had a conversation with, and you were just complete? Well, wait, it was when we started doing everything about aliens. Like all the information started flowing in, and like that's when it was. This stuff is information that the average person doesn't hear. That's the one thing that really sticks out to me. And like most people who don't do research, they'll just get on the internet, and they'll watch videos, and they'll see cool trendy videos of UFOs and aliens and stuff like that, but they really don't know the real story. And that's the one thing that I agree with you on about, Brian, because like this stuff, even the stories that go along with ufology, the average person doesn't realize this wasn't stuff that was thought of like 20 or 30 years ago. These stories go back 100, 150, sometimes 200 years ago. You know what I mean? And if you talk about, Shambhala, like you mentioned, and me and Austin's been going through, I mean, this stuff goes even farther back. They were talking about their gods having battles in the sky, with the Brahmastras and things of that nature. So that
I'm currently doing a lot of research into the Astras and stuff of ancient India that ties into that. So that's a thing.
And then you come in and you just threw him a curveball. You see?
Yeah.
So I threw him a curveball?
No, he threw you a curveball.
Oh.
Now you got more stuff to think about, huh?
It's a lot to take in. It's I'm not gonna lie, but it's fascinating. That's why I'm so quiet. I'm just sitting here listening to all of it, and he's saying a lot of things, that have already occurred to me, as far as thinking about it. But I'm like, oh my God, it's just like word for word a lot of stuff I've already thought of, and then I'm learning some new things I hadn't even thought of, and I'm remembering some other things I had forgotten about. So it's just like a wall of information kind of coming at me. But yeah, I looked at his website. He's way more in. He's very, very in depth.
Yeah.
A lot more so than me. I'm just scraping the surface of this even still after all my years of kind of being into it. So it's.
So, Brian, there's one thing else too that stuck out to me that I wanted to kind of get your personal opinion on, and you discussed disclosure, and you said that there was, well, I've heard it said before too, but I'd like your take on it. They said that humanity can't handle the truth. Okay, now what is your take on that? Do you believe that humanity can't handle the truth, or do you think that freaking humanity could handle the truth when it comes to UFOs and aliens?
Okay, my answer is no. Humanity can't handle the truth.
Okay. Do you think you could elaborate
Oh,
on that?
elaborate. But then I'd wake up my cat. Okay, no, I can elaborate. He's awake. Um, yeah, well, I think I defer to the wisdom of the Greys. They feel, at least what they told some experiencers, like Susie Hansen, in a recent interview, she said, as far as she's concerned, the Greys decide on disclosure. Like it's up to the Greys. It's not the human governments that actually decide on disclosure. And the reason why they've been disclosing a bit, in recent years, quite a significant amount, is because they're basically pushed into it. The Greys are saying you have to do this, you have to disclose. So I basically have a spiritual kind of relationship with the Greys. Like as a Buddhist, been a Buddhist for 33 years since 19. I defer to the monks. I defer to my elders, the spiritual teachers. So I have a spiritual kind of attitude and relationship with the Greys. And if they feel the wisest thing is to go gradual, then who am I to decide what's right for 8.1 billion people? It's not Brian Roost's decision.
Right.
If they feel it's necessary to go gradually, then I'll just defer to the wisdom of the Greys. It's kind of like a Christian saying, just leave it in God's hands. God knows better. So I actually believe that the mantids are really the wise ones that instruct the Greys. I think they feel it's wiser to go slowly because millions of people don't even think about space. They're just trying to make enough money just to survive and put enough food on the table. And religions will be affected by this, and worldviews will be affected. So I think what we've been seeing, like Susie Hansen said, the spiritualist movement back in the 1800s, like her great grandmother was a spiritualist in New Zealand. And in America, I think about compared to the Christian religion, almost half the people were involved in spiritualism. This is something probably initiated by the Greys to sort of break open people's minds. And the way Jeff Silver explains it in a good way, they're trying to break our minds and, in a sense, open up our perspective, give us a wider perspective. So look at how our spiritual views have changed since 1850, right? In the West, is basically all Christian. You're either Catholic or Protestant, right? and now we have all these different spiritual ideas. So this is probably by design.
All right, that's actually a pretty good answer on that one because now we've covered the disclosure stuff right there that I wanted to ask. Now you mentioned the mantids, and I know. See, this is the part that makes you pretty unique right there because not too many people talk about the mantids. Austin has a book where he has like the races of alien races and stuff, and he's got a part in there about what was it, the insects, Austin?
Yeah, the one that looked like a big old grasshopper. That was on the that was like from a presentation I did back when I was in like a junior high or something.
Yeah.
And I did a drawing of a bunch of different alien types that people had seen. And there was one that looked like it looked kind of like a big grasshopper, maybe mixed with a beetle, for lack of a better description. We'll have to show Brian those.
Yeah,
if we can get those
screen.
images to him.
You can do a share screen if you like, right?
Yeah, we could share a screen. Hold on a minute. Let me see if I can pull them up. I'm pretty sure that I'm on Discord. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, if you're on Discord, they're in Austin's artwork. Then that text channel old John created for me.
Okay, let me.
That'd be where you'd look.
Now, the mantids. The reason why I wanted.
They looked kind of like praying mantises.
Yeah. Like
giant. That was kind of what, but a grasshopper too.
I can share a screen if you want. I got one here. Am I allowed to share a screen?
Yeah, if you want to.
Okay, it says here, share. Does this come up? Do you see that?
Let me see real quick.
You don't see it? Am I sharing?
No, it's down on the bottom half. It's right when you put
Just
your mouse
select
at the
tab
bottom.
to share.
It says start share
Share.
screen.
Oh no, I did that, but then then the screen comes up. It says share is blacked out. Select the tab to share.
That would be over on the right hand side.
Oh, yeah, I've got it up, but I don't see how to share. I guess I don't know how to do it. Window, entire screen. Okay, I put entire screen. See that? Do you see that? No.
No, I don't see nothing. Do you?
No, I'll put it back up again. No, I got the picture up, but you don't see it, right?
Right.
Well, I don't know how to share a screen then.
I usually can get it done with everything. We can go over that at some other point if you want to, because that would
Yeah.
be
Yeah,
cool.
if you can,
That would be really,
if you can get onto, if you can get onto my artwork channel on there on Discord, Roger, we might be able to sew them now. But
Yeah.
if you can't, that's fine too.
I can give it a shot. I mean, I actually was on it the other day. I'm pulling the
All on Austin's artwork.
yeah. You have some interesting artwork there, bud.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'd like for Brian to see it
Let me
if we
Yeah,
can
yeah,
show
if
it.
you can
Some
show it, sure.
if I can get in there. Yeah.
we don't have to show it all to him now, but I mean, it as we get time to.
Let me.
Are you doing something, Roger?
They're not even letting me do it.
Oh, I see it. I see some of the thing here.
Let me see what is. Yeah, it's probably because I hid myself from view.
You always do that, Roger.
Yeah, I know. I'm
I
sorry.
had a dream the other.
Okay, there.
I
we
had a
go.
dream the other night that.
Can you guys see that?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can
It says conception. Yeah.
No, now let me go ahead and slide up to the one he's talking about. This is a creepy one too. Like he was a creepy little boy. Just so you know ahead of time. Like Austin was a creepy little dude.
I got warped.
He went to school and did a presentation on aliens. Okay,
Oh, way to go, Austin! You're a man ahead of your time.
he's junior.
Oh,
in
thank
high
you,
school.
Brian. Thank you.
You know,
I
not-
did a presentation on Bigfoot when I was like in grade 8.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I was around the same age when I did that.
Let me see. Here it is. Here
There.
it is. It's
Yeah, it is.
The insect type alien was spotted by a lawyer in Maryland, USA. It looks like a big old grasshopper to me.
Yeah, that doesn't look like your usual mantid. Maybe some similars, but it's not your typical mantid type drawing.
Now, with the mantids though, could you kind of give us background on them? Well, you know, I'll leave this up if you want, so we can
Oh,
show.
it's fine. Yeah, I can leave it. Well, one thing they've told people is that they don't come from any particular planet. It would be wrong to think of them originating from any planet, but they don't explain where they come from. So I just have my own guess from a Buddhist view. I think, well, maybe they're from the Brahma realm above the heavens of the Devas. The highest heavens are the Brahma realms, and they live for billions of years. And the Buddha described a Brahma of 1,000 world systems that could encompass. So they, and in terms of what they look like, they look similar to a grasshopper, or more like maybe a fly's eyes, really big eyes, sort of triangle-shaped head, and tall and skinny, like maybe 7 or 8 feet tall, with very narrow appendages, like very narrow legs and arms with an extra joint on the arms. But people have encountered them and said they project a lot of love. A lot of love comes from them. They also wear these white robes often, white robes with a collar. I did videos with Donna Lynn in the United States, and she said, once you felt that kind of love, you never experienced that from a man. So people have met them. They said they look ugly. They can. Jeff Silver described the kind of visceral reaction he had when he was first introduced to the mantid, who told him that he was the architect of their plan, of their life plan that this group of people with. So they can look quite revolting, but they can project lots of love.
It's pretty.
I could email you my mantid picture, and you could put it on. Maybe I don't know if that would work while we're live.
Well, I mean, one thing that I did want to mention is like what we're doing with everywhere or everything about aliens is we're starting off from the Argarians and we're going in here after this. It'll be the Draco and the Draconian, however you want to pronounce them. But after that, we're also going to be getting into the insects, I believe it is, or in different varieties of alien creatures. And the mantids are a good topic that I think would be a contribution to it if you'd be interested in doing that with us.
Oh yeah, I'd love to stick up for the mantids and give them a fair hearing. Yeah,
So-
I'd love to do that. I really enjoyed
So,
it.
so Brian and Roger, do you think that drawing I did there was of a mantid, or a mantid variation?
It
What
could
do
be
you
like,
guys both think?
yeah, the appendages could be are kind of mantid, like they're tall and skinny, and I'm not. Is that one with 4 arms? Is that 4? what you
Looks
have
like
there?
it's got 6.
Yeah, 6.
I think.
Oh, just thinking of mantids
It's-
I've seen. I don't know. Maybe they have more than 2. I've seen them with 2 arms, but there's variations of mantids, very different looking heads as well, and they can also shapeshift. Susie Hansen saw a gray shape-shifting into a mantid, like a dual soul, right in front of her, shifted from a gray to a mantid. But even the Buddha said shape-shifting is a hallmark of the devas, so that's not bad. I guess the big eyes look good, the really big eyes.
Yeah.
I think they have maybe more of a tapered kind of snout, like a triangular head. But there's different shapes of mantids, so this might be quite accurate for one type of mantid.
And see, what I've found from going through the KGB files, supposed KGB files, because a lot of it's very controversial. I understand that, so I'm just going to say supposed. But they mentioned the fact that there's multiple types of like reptilian beings as well as insected. You know what I mean? Like there's the different varieties of them. They're not all just like one species. So that's another thing that you have to take into consideration as well.
Yeah, I'm sure it's confusing. Yeah, in my University Galactus project, Beetle said we don't get too caught up in the different types of species. It's more like what is their intention? Why are they here? How are they trying to relate to us? And also to reduce fear of ETs, because we're trying to basically prepare people for open contact in the future to physical and to non-physical ETs or non-human intelligences.
That's actually a pretty positive approach on the whole situation.
Oh yeah, that's a very good way of going at it, and that might help humanity be able to adjust to the change a little more, move on to the next phase of that change as it manifests or unfolds.
Yeah, our website just came active on April the 13th. It's universitygalactus.org with this philosophy.
Awesome. Now, I was wanting to ask you about something else when it concerns the grays. Now, you mentioned the grays, and then you distinctly separate the grays from what you refer to as the ancient grays.
Yeah, well, then they're also called old stock grays. Like they're all part of the same community of grays. There's different types of grays, but the ancient grays are regarded like they're spiritual elders. These are the spiritual teachers amongst the grays. They would rarely even teach human beings. Like Susie Hansen said, she had a feeling of awe and reverence whenever she met one of the ancient grays, and they would kind of wear a robe and have very folded skin. So these are like the gurus, the spiritual teachers amongst the grays. So the grays would even tell, for instance, that when Jeff Several was introduced, his gray elder told him, well, you should bow your head, like show proper respect. Like if I was to go visit a Buddhist monk, I'd hold my hands in a jolly and I'd have a little bow. So the grays are instructing humans, well, you should bow when you meet them, you should show some respect, bow your head.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they have a spiritual society with a spiritual hierarchy, just the way, Buddhists do with the Buddhist monks.
Yeah. Now, I've also heard some stories too from people who are involved with the secret space program where they talk about abductees being taken on ships and that they were presented in front of what would seem to be like a classroom setting where younger aliens were like using them as subjects to where they could observe them. Have you ever heard anything like that before?
Yeah, I have like classroom settings, or even with children, like playroom settings or classroom settings. Yeah, where humans would intermix with the ETs and they would be observing what they're doing. Yeah, I've read and saw a lot of videos including that.
Yeah. No, that's something that really sticks out to me whenever I hear about that. And then they also go on to distinguish between earthbound humans and off-world humans, like where people don't distinct. People usually don't make the distinction between humans that know about Earth or were born on Earth and humans that were born in outer space and don't even have a clue about Earth whatsoever.
Yeah, I agree with that. There's definitely those two, that distinction.
Now, have you got any thoughts concerning that right there whatsoever?
Well, like I said earlier, like Richard Dolan had this theory that humans simply may have been taken from Earth many thousands of years ago and brought onto alien societies to be used for the purpose of coming back to this Earth. Like there could be humans living among us that are trained from ET societies. I mean, what a way to infiltration. I think there is some infiltration of our society, that there's ETs walking down the halls of the Pentagon. Some may look fully human, or there's fully human aliens walking the streets of our cities. And that's the way to do it. If you want to penetrate into our society, you have a whole race of human beings. They could be from Earth, trained in an alien society, like on an alien planet, or on these big motherships could be up to 200 miles across, like our logo for University Galactus. We have these big ships. So there's plenty of room out there for these humans to either come from Earth or be humans from other planets that they would use and to interact with our world here. So
that's very interesting. You should say that, Brian, because my mom, a number of years ago, over here where we live, she overheard some guys saying that over here in this town we live in, there's a lot of people who are actually aliens, but they look like normal humans.
Could be true. Yeah.
That ties in a lot with what you said, because you remember my mom talking about that, Roger,
Yeah.
a number of times.
Yeah.
That really struck me.
Now, I been taking notes, just so you know, because this is good stuff.
Oh, it's amazing.
Now, now we come to the Federation of Planets. This is.
I got my cup ready. Here you go.
I know you've been showing it over and over again, so I know you've been waiting for this. So.
Well, a friend of mine, Barry, gave it as a gift, so I gotta, show it.
Mm-hmm. Now, give us your take on the Federation of Planets, because I know this is something Austin really needs to hear too. I was talking to him previously about this Federation, so I think.
Yeah, I'm ready to hear it, man.
Okay, my take is I don't know. I'd say they there must be some governmental structure in place. It's only logical and rational that since there's so many different types of aliens, they can't just do whatever they want. That they have some overt control, that you're not allowed to just land on the White House lawn or land anywhere without permission. So I think there's got to be some government in place. Like Susie Hansen has said, she was never told about any like Federation of Planets. But Jeff Silver, like I showed his book, The Rising, he was specifically told that they do have a federation, like a Federation of Planets. They even have the same kind of insignia on Star Trek, that chevron shape, like a triangle shape, this chevron, and some people would wear it. He was actually handed this chevron shape. It was a symbol of the Federation, and on it were different planets. It was like a three-dimensional thing. You could see the planets and understand relationships between the planets. This was his induction to the Federation of Planets. It's a chapter in his book. They had kind of like a ceremony with several humans, and this is when he first met um, the Mantid came out, and his elder was there, and other Greys, and they're congratulating them and thanking them for part of this program. This was like his induction into the Federation of Planets, and he realized this was kind of a big deal to them. So that may be true. I believe Jeff's story. I think it's a true story. So some people have been told that there's a Federation of Planets. Maybe others didn't ask. But I definitely think there is some type of Federation of Planets, whether they call it a Federation of Planets or a Galactic Federation or whatever it's called. Yeah, I'm a true believer that it must be that there is a government in place, and that Earth is an important planet. We're a valuable planet, so it has to be taken care of by some kind of rules. This would include all types of aliens relating with Earth, even if they're negative reptilians. They would have to be part of this Federation. I remember once Jeff Silver said, if you ever see a UFO, like if it's a real UFO, it's got to be part of the Federation, he said.
Yeah. I know with a lot of the stories that I've heard concerning this, they've mentioned the Federation, which involved Vega, and they were supposed to be more of a conglomerate federation where it was all about trade and resources and stuff like that. And then I've also heard about the Orions. That was a federation that I've heard of. And of course, everybody knows about the Federation of Planets. I mean, that's pretty much standard right there if you're researching this stuff and you hear about it. So that is a topic that I do want to get into eventually when it comes to everything about aliens, but like at the moment we're just building up step by step and kind of introducing people to the story, and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
What do you think, Austin?
It's amazing. It's in one word, it's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and just the amount of information that I'm suddenly getting, even after all my years of reading into this stuff, it's just, I thought I pretty much had, the whole foundation of knowledge and stuff laid down, and now I'm laying down I'm building on the foundation, so to speak, which I originally thought was all the knowledge there was to know, but there's just, it's incredible. And I think maybe that's part of the disclosure that's going on. Maybe there was only so much I was supposed to know a number of years ago, because that was what humanity more or less knew. So now, and maybe this series is even kind of tying into that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So now that we've discussed alien species and the Federation of Planets, tell us a little bit about Susie Hansen.
Yeah, Susie Hansen. I like to show her book, The Dual Soul Connection. Well, she was born in 1954, so she turned 70 this year. She's from New Zealand. And in 1975, she had an incredible UFO encounter. She was driving on a lonely country road with her roommate. He was driving, and a UFO picked them up, lifted the car right off the road, and they were freaking out. She lost consciousness. She had lost time. And then the car was put back on the road, and it was dark. It went from light to dark, so they had missing time, and they were totally shocked by this. So that was her first sort of big experience. But as a girl, when she was 8 years old, she saw a UFO with her whole family and the neighbors. It was up in the sky for like an hour, very visible sighting. So she grew up as a little girl being aware of UFOs. But then she had like a whole lifetime experience with the Greys. Well, I think it wasn't until her 30s in the 1980s that her memory were coming back to her. That when she was a little kid, like a little girl, three little Greys would come to her bed, say, "We're taking you on a trip now." She had a very kind of close, friendly relationship, like a trusting, loving relationship with them. And then they would take her away and bring her back and say, "Okay, be a good girl, go to sleep now." So she turned over, go to sleep. So she's had this relationship throughout her life. But I think what's special about her is the level of detail about the Grey culture and their society. Like in her book, she would have specific instances, like say 1983, she was on an underground base, or 1990, she was on a large mothership craft, and they would have these meetings, and the Greys would explain their agenda, what's going on. So I've studied different experiences, but she's I think my favorite or the best in terms of the level of detail about like who they are, what the agenda is, where is this going, like why are they here, what are they doing, the fact that this is a massive, large scale project encompassing the whole world. Like once you understand her thesis, there couldn't be like a second group of ETs or a third group of ETs, all with different agendas acting on the world, because they're changing all of human civilization and society. So I think they're describing how the Greys want to work behind the scenes. They don't want to be overt, like the idea that humans can't handle the truth of full disclosure. That has to be gradual. So they're choosing to work behind the scenes, and this is a project that may take centuries, but it depends on human beings. Like she emphasizes, humans actually have to put in the changes. Like the Greys can't just do it for us. But also in the same breath, she's saying that they are working behind the scenes. So I like the level of detail, and also she's quite an honest person. I think her integrity is very good. Like she worked with a UFO organization she founded since 1975, and she's been a UFO investigator. She worked with Graham Opie, who was an air traffic controller in New Zealand, and they really established a good reputation as a New Zealand UFO investigation society. It's through her efforts that they got the Ministry of Defense to release a lot of their UFO files. So I think she's good, honest, solid person with good integrity. And also she corroborates her experience with other experiences. For instance, when she's on a craft, she's been on a craft where she would go into a light elevator. To go in this elevator, it feels like kind of like liquid air. You stand there and you use a particular symbol to know what floor you're going to or where you're going. And she's corroborated this with other people, like other experiencers. One in the States back in like 1997 reported the same kind of thing, a light elevator. So she's careful to really investigate her own experiences. It's not like she just says, "Oh, wow, I had this amazing experiences I saw these aliens, I saw this craft," like, "Oh, wow." She really investigates her experiences and compares it with others. So she's done really good investigation. Also, she's quite cautious and conservative about what she's published. I've been waiting a few years for her second book, but she says timing's important. Yeah. So, and also Dr. Rudy Shield, who's a Harvard astrophysicist, he's done a physicist analyzing of some of her experiences. He's in the book as well. So that gives her a lot of credibility. So yeah, I highly recommend the book. It's on Amazon. It costs about $31. You can get it Amazon.com or Amazon.ca if you're Canadian.
Okay, cool. Now, what about Jeff Silver?
Yeah, well, he's like new at this. Like in beginning of July of 2019, his memories were kind of awoken. So he wasn't part of the UFO community. He's got an MBA, he worked in banking. Now he works in logistics, and his memories sort of came awake in like July of 2019. I just met him months later in March of 2020. And he's someone I spent a lot of time with him, like maybe 20 hours with him one-on-one. Like he would come over to my place and we talked for 5 hours, and then another time. So it's someone I've investigated personally. Like I've seen him up close and personal. So I think his story is quite true. And he's quite similar to Susie. Maybe not quite the level of detail about the society and the culture of the Greys, but he's had a lot of one-on-one encounters with the elder, and he's been on the craft, and they told him a bit about on their plans and what they're doing. And also, they've given them visions of perhaps a culling of the world's population. There could be great waves coming across the continent, but they've given them visions of like fire going across the continents. But other experiencers have been shown images like this too since the 1970s. So is this intended as just a warning? But he's had some of those kind of warnings from the Greys. So yeah, I think his videos are worth watching. Like highly recommend his book. But same with Susie Hansen and Jeff. I've listened to almost all of their talks, and his talks are on a website. Or it's on YouTube called Vancouver UFO, because it's with the Vancouver UFO meetup. So, and also he's largely an unknown. And I would say Susie Hansen is barely known. She wrote to me, she says, well, I'm not really looking for so much for the limelight. And she's had to pay her own money to go to these big UFO conferences they have like in the States, like in Arizona or New Mexico.
Yeah.
So she's not really famously known. So I think it's just an example of some of the very best people are obscure, whereas people are quite famous or promoted on a guy on TV. Like Corey Good was paid $500 an episode on a guy.
It's like
TV.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't want to mention.
It's like
Corey
us
Good.
here doing our.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't want to mention him, but like whenever I'll go ahead and do it, because that's just, sometimes I have that honoriness in me, But like he actually got up on stage at one of these conferences and told people that they weren't supposed to videotape him or take pictures of him without his consent, and he wanted to be paid for it. And I'm like, are you serious?
Wow.
You just did that to an entire audience of ufology followers. You don't do that. There's a boundary, So.
Yeah, but what's significant about Corey Good, and the reason I like to quote him, is that in the fall of 2022, he admitted that he just made up the whole thing. It was a lie. He admitted it because he was kind of being dumped by a guy at TV. They're hiring other guys. He says, this is my intellectual property. So he tried to sue. He's been suing. He kept saying, this is my IP, my intellectual property. So I thank Corey Good for coming clean, because they hired a half a dozen other guys like Tony Rodriguez and others to carry on the secret space program, fighting those evil Nazis in space.
Yeah. And see, I didn't know that about Tony Rodriguez, because like out of a lot of the secret space program people, his story stuck to the actual storyline. Like if you notice with a lot of them, they like to incorporate their stories among one another, and he never did that. But like this is the first time I actually heard that, where he was being paid to do that. So. It's good.
Yeah, and he charges $100 an hour.
Oh, I've seen that.
He was asked in an interview by Jay Wilder, aren't you worried that these Nazis are going to come back and take over the world or conquer the world? He said, no, because they feel they've already taken over the world through the bankers that they control. So he's saying that the bankers, like the Rothschilds, are Nazis? That's not what he's saying? I thought the Nazis were destroyed.
Yeah.
So
We thought.
doesn't make any sense. He thinks these Nazis are running the world, but no, there's really no evidence for that.
Yeah. Well, I think we've covered everything. The Consciousness and Contact Research Institute. You want to put a plug out for them? Tell a little bit about them.
Yeah, I've got some books of theirs I can pull out here. For instance,
He's a treasure trove.
Yeah, he is.
yeah, this is a greater reality. They got a new volume coming out this fall. I just got an email from Ray Hernandez. He sent me the new volume. They're like 800 pages long. But this is like the premier American scientific organization doing the most thorough like surveys and research. They got about 20 PhDs. Like I mentioned, Dr. Rudy Shield I've investigated. We've also got Dr. John Climo, Dr. Michael Grosso, Dr. Jeffrey Long, quite a few. A lot of these are retired scientists. So, they have the courage to come out and tell the truth because they can't get fired from the jobs at the university. They're retired. So it's really the best brains. Like Richard Dolan, I have a lot of respect for him. He's got a master's degrees in histories, where these fellows, they have PhDs and they've done thorough surveys. So I think this is really the premier scientific organization, and they're they're investigating basically non-human intelligence. This includes like near-death experiences, remote viewing, psychic phenomenon, as well as UFO ET. So it's very comprehensive. So they're saying that consciousness is fundamental. Sort of consciousness comes first. So they're discussing the very nature of reality. And their website is called agreaterreality.com or agreaterreality.org, but it's a greater reality. Yeah. So I'm having him as a guest. He's coming on May 8th. My meetup group is preparing for ET contact, but he would be a great one to have on your show. The director, Ray Hernandez.
Well, I mean, if they would be willing to come on, I would be more than happy to have them, because it's been an amazing interview here. I mean, this is completely.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Well, if you want, sure. If you want, I could write to them. I could write to like Susie Hansen and Jeff Selver too, if you like. If you would like to get them on.
Yeah, that'd be great. And before we end up ending, we need to let you give yourself a plug. Tell us where we can contact you, your website you got, your podcast, your research, everything. I mean, let us know all of it.
Yeah, okay. Well, our new website is universitygalacticus.org. We're creating like an online university for these purposes. But my main channel, I have 3,500 videos on my BitChute channel. So you go to bitchute.com. It's the Brian Ruhe channel, RUHE. So my videos go back to 2011. And my website is brianruhe.ca. I'm also on Facebook, Brian Ruhe, Twitter, Brian Ruhe. And I got some other channels like Brighteon as well. And I'm on TikTok. But my BitChute is my main channel. Also on BitChute, we have Preparing for ET Contact channel with just those UFO-related videos.
Okay. Now, just let you know, too, that we did have technical difficulties on YouTube, so I'm going to have to restream on YouTube. But the good news is I hit record at the beginning, so we do have that, and I can rerun it to anybody who's watching. After we get this all straightened out, I apologize for the inconvenience. You had bobdub on there. She had a lot of good stuff to say. She was anxious to see you.
You're still share screening now, right?
Yeah, I am. It's
yeah, okay, that's fine.
It's right. Oh, well, I could do the actual stream actually if it's still up there, but yeah, I can do it. But yeah, Bob Dub came on. We got someone by the name of Friend of Crows, and then Lily. She showed up, as well as Otto. He sent a cool little emoji of putting your hands up and praying. And I believe that's it on that one. But I know on the previous one, they were filling up in the chat room. So for all you guys, I want to apologize, and I will go back through and answer anything that I can if I can. But I want to say that it will be straightened out, and it will be the full episode. So with that, Austin, you got anything that you want to ask? Anything you want to get out there, say?
Well, I would say with you, Brian, I think me and Roger fit the mother load as far as information goes. Everything. That's yeah, man. I mean, you've really got a lot going on. You're in deep, man. So it's I'm looking forward to talking to you more and working with you on this series as we go forward.
Yeah, I'd love to come back whenever you guys want me. That'd be great.
Yeah,
this is what I do. So
yeah, it's been awesome talking to you, man. It's been absolutely awesome.
No,
great meeting you both.
After the show, I'd like to get together with you and maybe discuss a plan that we can do to where we can incorporate some of your stuff into it, and like come up with topics and see what.
Yes.
You know what
sure.
I mean? And what it is, I usually do the editing, so you don't have to do any of the background.
Oh,
stuff,
thank you. Yeah, I do a lot of video editing. I know what it's like.
Yeah.
And thumbnails. Oh, thumbnails and editing.
Gosh,
That's it's a pain in the ass. I'm working on a lot of music videos myself right now, so it takes forever getting those things done. I can only imagine what you guys must go through, especially you, Brian, with like 3,500,
Yeah.
4,000 videos almost.
Well, I have a couple of volunteers. They help out with the video editing.
That's and plus it's an addiction too. If people aren't into editing, they don't understand that. You know what I mean? But there's just if you're doing over 3,000 videos, there's more than just aliens involved there. You know what I mean? You love editing because
Oh yeah.
How do you know
Yeah,
so much
you're-
about me, Roger? It's true. It's true.
You're yeah, you love it.
I mean, because I haven't even come close to 3,000 videos yet, but I can honestly tell you that I love it so much it drives me crazy.
Now, how many videos have you done overall, Roger,
I couldn't
on all
tell
your plat?
I couldn't.
Oh, you
tell
don't know for sure.
I don't know.
Do you know it ain't up to 3,000 yet?
Yeah, I doubt it's 3,000, but it's getting up there. One of these days I'll be able to say that.
Probably around 1,500
Maybe.
if I had to estimate.
Oh.
You got a lot going. You got a lot of irons in the fire yourself.
It's just people don't like me though. I'm not like popular. You know what I mean? One of these days maybe I will be popular, but that's not why I do it. I do it because I really enjoy the information that I'm getting from everybody, and my topics are usually a variety of things. I don't just talk about aliens or ghosts. I talk about philosophy and religion with bobdub and Otto. And then you got Mark Edworthy and Tan. They're all into the tech talk stuff. So got a lot of good stuff going on there. And
Good.
so with that being said, I guess we're done here. You guys have anything else on your mind?
Well, just a big thank you. Thanks for having me on the show. I'd love to be back. This has been lots of fun. It's
Right
been
on.
good.
I know. And
Yeah, nice meeting you, Brian. This is amazing.
Good to meet you, Austin.
now,
Yeah, good to meet you too, man.
before we end this, I want to ask you, Brian, do you have a problem with using Discord?
No, I've had Discord a few years ago. I had it, so I have no problem using it. I've used it before.
Now, if you want to, you can join us on our Discord server, and we can get a little bit closer contact together where we can communicate and everything. So
Yeah, I guess I have to reload it again. Like I haven't used it in about 4 years. So how do I get into it? I guess I have to learn it all over. Do I just go to discord.com and download it?
yeah, you can download it or use the browser, whichever one you feel comfortable with.
I use the Brave browser most of the time.
Okay. Now,
So what do you think would be best?
for me
Well-
personally, I just downloaded it. I don't want to have it popped up on a browser while I'm doing other things. It seems easier to do it.
Okay, so I'll just go to Discord and download it. And then how do I find you there? Discord.
I will send you information. You just type in a search thing there, and it'll bring you up to the page and everything. And then after that, I can friend you on there, and Austin can friend you. And
Yeah, it's a good place to talk with groups. Sure, yeah.
I also
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a great platform to talk to everybody from the wonderful world of weirdness.
Yeah, you meet different people. Yeah, I've used it before for that reason.
and plus you'll be able to meet bobdub and Summer. Now those are two awesome people to meet.
Yeah, when I meet Bob Dub, he's the one that first approached me, so I'd love to meet him. Sure.
Oh, it's a she.
It's a she.
I have no idea Bob
I
Dub
used-
was a she.
I used to think Bob Dub was a guy too when I first
named
started
Bob?
talking to her. Because her
Oh.
name I think her real name is Bobby with an I, but I
Okay.
thought it was
That's a girl.
I thought it was a guy.
It-
But at first I thought it was a guy because it was Bob Dub.
no,
But
she's an amazing woman. I did my first interview with her, and I am not lying to you. Okay, it was so profound that everybody just was silent.
Wow. So she's profound.
Yeah, she's a very profound person.
Well, I'd like to meet her. Very good.
Now Austin's mom, she's just a troublemaker. I mean, she'll get us in trouble. Stay up all hours of the night talking about stuff, and she'll never.
talking about
Go ahead.
paranormal stuff and
Yeah,
all that.
but she's got her own show on our channel too. So it's Summer Todd's Mystery Show, which this is probably where this is streaming to, because like the YouTube stream is technically supposed to be going, but I have no idea where. It just says that it's streaming, but
I've never streamed before, but I'm older. You guys grew up with the technology. The internet was invented when I was 34.
yeah.
No, yeah.
With YouTube, I have more problems with YouTube than I do with any of the other ones. I stream on Odyssey and Rumble, and I have less amount of trouble with those two than what I do with YouTube. It just seems to always be an issue. So with that, I will go ahead and bid you to a fair adieu, or however you're supposed to say that. And
Yeah.
All right. Good talking to you guys.
good talking.
Great
to you.
interview.
Good show. Good. Lots of fun.
You guys have a good night.
Good start.
You
Okay.
too.
Good night.
Bye bye.
Take it easy. Bye.